everyone. My name is Lindsay Shuck. Thank you so much for joining today's Family Office Network's webinar series featuring CLICS. Before we get started, I want to briefly introduce our speaker today, Charles Brown, CEO. Charles has held CEO and senior management roles in 11 technology companies, 6 of which he founded. He has managed business strategy, sales and marketing, intellectual property development, corporate finance, and banking relationships. While serving as a liaison for the University of Southern California's Information Sciences Institute to the U.S. Air Force Strategic Air Command in Washington, D.C., Charles helped develop and deploy the first internet system for the Department of Defense. At the end of today's presentation, we will have time for Q&A. Please use your questions chat option on your screen to send over any questions that you have so we can answer those accordingly.
Great. Yeah, thank you so much, Lindsay. Hi, everybody. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us. I hope you like what you hear. We're going to go ahead and jump in. The name of the company is CLICS, and that stands for Color Lab Inventory Control System. So there's actually a lot going on under the hood with the name. We have a tagline, which is color, creativity, and technology. We're all about hair color and creating, any color you might want, unlocking the creativity of stylists, of which are about 1 million in the United States alone, and using technology to do so. So the journey started for me at about, I think it was September of 16. And in that window of time, and let me go to the next slide here, I needed a haircut. I'd actually, kind of on a personal note, had finished up running a financial services company that I founded. My mother contracted pancreatic cancer, so I moved down to Southern California to help her with end of life. Needed a haircut and found myself in the chair of my business partner, who you see here, Leilani Macedo. And she started quizzing me down, what do you do? I told her I'm a technology entrepreneur. And she said, oh, I have an idea I've been working on in the salon industry, would you like to hear it? And it's kind of ironic, right? She's got this sharp pair of scissors whirring around my head. And I said, you have my full attention. And so she shared the idea, and she articulated it, in the business problems with great clarity. And I knew really quickly that this could be a really big idea. So, and I had actually solved an inventory management problem in the nutraceutical industry and captured major market share years before, and the problems were similar. So I called her back up, we took her to coffee. We spent about 4 months getting to know one another, doing due diligence on the industry, and we formed the company in January of 16. So she came up as a cosmetologist, a colorist, stylist, and then ended up owning her own Aveda, salon and spa. And so she saw all of the pain in this industry, and it turns out to be really substantial. And what I found, and the kind of things you look for, is an industry that's nascent, that hasn't had a lot of technological innovation. And what she explained was a space where, and this is now professional salons, where they waste 25% of the color that they use, and hair coloring is their anchor service, and that waste represents about 30% of the pre-tax profits of a typical salon, right? So that's a really interesting problem all by itself. They have a lot of inventory that they carry, so they tie up a lot of cash. The stylists make a lot of formulation mistakes because it turns out that hair color is super complicated. You're taking a series of dyes in a chemical mix. You're putting them together with a catalyst, which in this case is hydrogen peroxide. That catalytic process, when put on the hair, causes the hair follicles to open up. Pulls out the melanin, so that's what the peroxide does, and then it replaces that melanin with the dyes, the molecules of the dyes, and then of course the light reflects on them and you see the color. The mixing of that process turns out to be quite complicated, and so what the color manufacturers have done is they've pre-mixed colors into specific shades, which limits color choice, and they put them in these tubes, which are incredibly wasteful, and those tubes cost $7 to $10 a piece, and is typically good for one application, so you can kind of get a sense of the cost. The tools they use to do mixing, if they mix at all, are antiquated, about 40 years old. So we looked at all of these issues, and and ideated on how we could solve not one of them, but all of them. And I think that's a kind of an important point, because I've seen a number of companies in this industry and in other industries come in with a spot solution. So they may try to solve one of those problems or two of those problems, but not have a really substantial change. As a result, it's harder to extract adequate value from the customer to be able to cover all your costs, et cetera. So on the other hand, if you can, like Peter Thiel says, where competition is for losers, if you can come in with a solution that is so over the top and has so much value that you have no competition, you've created blue ocean space, as it were, then you've got something special. What does that mean? That means you can grow really rapidly, acquire a lot of customers, create a lot of value quickly, and then of course produce an exit for your shareholders. So what we decided to do was to take just that tact. We initiated a really aggressive innovation cycle beginning in 2016, where we decided to create our own reactive line of hair color chemistry. And for any of those of you who are chemists or in that space, you know that that's a big task to take on. Not only did we want to do it, but we wanted to create a mixable line of hair color, not just pre-mixed tubes, so that you could mix any combination of those and get any color and unlock the color space. So we've now done that. We have the world's first mixable line of MEA hair color. MEA is the 21st century gentler, kinder version of ammonia, right? So our hair color smells wonderful versus that really nasty smell, if anybody's been in that hair environment where they're in a salon and a lot of hair color is being put on. The next is in hair color packaging. So we innovated in putting the hair color in pressurized canisters that hold 4 tubes and are recyclable. So we've got a great eco play here I'll talk about. We built the first robotic internet-connected dispenser for hair color, and we'll talk quite a bit more about that. The first mobile application for stylists to design hair colors to service their clients. We've incorporated optical sensors where you can literally take a little device, put it up to your hair, determine what the starting level is, apply the hair color, and then determine what the ending hair color is in really fine detail. And we can collect that data, put it into a big database, and use it to improve formulations for clients. And then what we do is we apply neural network AI technology to that in 2 ways. One, when we create a formula of any combination of our colors that can be mixed, we can now, first time ever, this is patent pending, show a stylist what that hair color is going to look like. And that's a breakthrough piece. Again, I'll talk a little bit more about that. We've integrated it all into a platform. And so, the last 7 businesses that I've done have all been platform plays. The key is, using the internet to completely reshuffle the space to figure out, how to garner, value. And so that's, really valuable. The result of that is the world's first digital hair color studio for stylists, and pay per dispense color as a service for salons. So you can kind of create an analogy to the old software days where you used to buy discs, you'd pay $300 or $400 for a Microsoft operating system and Office. Now, of course, you just do monthly subscriptions, which is much easier on people. So this is an important first for us. The result of that is completely automated dispensing, where it tracks all the dispensing activity and actually issues reorders back to the factory, which drop ships directly to the salons. Complete elimination of waste and inventory management, and those are patented capabilities. The world's first mixable MEA line and unlimited color choice, all controlled by a mobile application, and this is key, which allows a stylist not only to create a custom formula and color for their client, but the system remembers that, and they can call that formula back up in seconds anytime they want, and the dispenser will accurately reproduce that color. If you've ever talked to someone who gets their hair color and ask them if they get it right the same time, the same color, they'll typically say no. So it's really a breakthrough in terms of service quality. And then importantly, all of these produce economies of scale for salons. So they save money on the waste, they improve service quality, which means they retain customers longer, increasing their customer lifetime value. So it's a very efficient system. It is designed to acquire a bunch of information by itself and deliver the results of that information to the salon. Said differently, some of the spot systems we've seen in the technical space, the salons and the stylists have to actually input the data, and they often do it wrong, so you have a garbage in, garbage out problem. In our system, which is quite unique, all that information exists there, and when you go through and you service a client and it retains that formula information, the amount of time you put it on their hair, all that goes into a service record in their history, and you get to pull it up and take advantage of it, but you don't have to input any of that data. And so brief value proposition, we are revolutionizing this space. We are unlocking the color space, so stylists who are, again, creatives get access to millions of unique colors. We eliminate waste completely, which is huge, and that's not only a big economic benefit for the salon owner, but it's a huge eco value for the stylist, because all that hair color, you know, with all that ammonia is going into our water systems, and the tubes are going into our landfills. So we've also completely eliminated the inventory carrying cost. So we're taking salons cash flow positive for their hair color. Again, so, you know, increasing their profitability and, you know, reducing their operating cost and their you know, cash outlays. We estimate about a 3-year advantage to market. So we've been very quiet during this process. We've got some fundamental patents in place that are going to protect us. And so we really think we're in great shape in that respect. And then I'll share something else here, folks. And I know this is going to get a little technical, but I think it's quite powerful. When you look at that mobile application display, there's a couple key pieces there. There's a starting level, and that's the level that a person's hair starts at. So the way a stylist would typically work with a client is the client would say, I'd like to be a, you know, blonde in this range of color. You know, they'd have a little consultation. In this case, you see that blue mark around the level 9 there. So it's a 12-level system from black up to blonde. Once you pick a particular level, then the stylists think of color, you know, color space, if you will. It's a 3-dimensional space, again, from dark to blonde. Now imagine if I could take a slice out of that space at level 9, hold it up for the stylist, and for the first time, they could pick any color they wanted in that space, whether it's a warmer red or a cooler, you know, greenish blue, or a you know, more of a golden, you know, brown. They pick that, and then our system, using that neural network technology, can create the exact formula to produce that color. You know, that's a never before been done capability, which not only unlocks the color space and their creativity for stylists, but it does it in a way that they're used to thinking about it, and it just makes it dirt simple, so you're not having to be a chemist and do mathematics to, you know, create a particular color. The value proposition is very strong for salon owners and stylists. So for salon owners, it's waste elimination, no inventory, you know, cash tied up in inventory, no inventory management, because our system just automatically replenishes. We retain ownership of the inventory until it gets used. The salon ties a bank account to the system, so we automatically do an ACH debit on a daily basis. And as a consequence, we can ship as much or as little inventory to the salon as we need to ensure that they have what they need without the salon owner ever having to approve anything. And so it just really eliminates what is a real yoke around their neck right now in terms of the things they have to do in addition to running the business. The purchase after dispense obviously let them go cash flow positive. And importantly, our system is PIN-based. And what that means is that in a salon, you may often have some subset of the stylists, which are what they call chair renters. So they're independent operators. They just pay the salon a monthly fee for use of the chair. And so we can create individual accounts with each of the chair renting stylists and serve the entire community. For stylists, of course, it's more color choice, it's precision, it's repeatability, and it's always available. Our market research showed that stylists told us that they don't have the right color 44% of the time, which is huge. And that means they're not going to service their clients as well. They go into the back room, they try mixing these different colors to get what they want. Doesn't always work out so well. And so this is an always available capability, again, improving service quality. And the ecological benefits are dramatic because we ship direct to the salons. In fact, I've got a separate slide on this that I'll show you. and we eliminate outer packaging, we eliminate carbon transportation footprint, through distribution. There's just a bunch of benefits ecologically. Our go-to-market strategy is to capture market share quickly, and so we've really created a low barrier to entry. So it's a $500 setup fee. We charge an $8.25 per day lease fee for each machine. We'll supply 2 machines typically, so that's about a $500 a month fee. But when a salon buys at least $500 a month in color, for each $500, we'll waive the lease fee for the machine for that month. And we really want to get that out of the way, right? We want them just buying the color on a price per gram basis. It's a 6-month contract, and for each $1,000 a month they buy in color, we'll give them a 10% discount. So first 10,000, 10%, second 10,000, 20%, and so they can get volume discounts. Importantly, in this case, our margins in this business, it's one of the really attractive things about the beauty industry, are 85% for the cost of goods of the color itself packaged in the canisters, and another 5% for shipping. So we have 80% gross margins on the product, and the salons in our space are buying around $45,000 to $50,000 a year in color. So these are very productive customers in terms of gross margin contribution for the business. A little bit of technology, and then I'll actually pull up a kiosk model for that financial, how each salon might look. So going to the technology here, you'll see our platform. We have 2 issued patents on it. We have 4 more that are pending, including the AI and the big data network utilization. We have a bunch of sensors in this platform. It is 10x more reliable or granular in terms of the dispensing accuracy. We have triple redundant communication, so high reliability. I was actually in the Air Force and worked on the systems that launched the nuclear missiles and got heavily involved in data communications. And so have had a personal role in architecting the system to make sure they're highly reliable. It only has 2 moving parts, which is pretty spectacular. There are 50 of these canisters of various sorts of color in a platter that rotate in here. And so there's one mechanical unit that applies pressure on the top of this pressurized canister, and then the other is the motor that rotates the platter. One of the 2 fundamental patents that we have is the ability to apply external pressure to a canister that dispenses dye or pigments directly into a receptacle, in this case our smart bowl. And that's huge, because if we had to have tubes that directed the color into the bowl, we'd have a maintenance nightmare, and the system probably wouldn't work at all. And so we have a fundamental patent there. The second one we have is how we eliminate waste. So what we did is we put an RFID sensor with the weight scale in the bottom of the plate here. We put an RFID tag in the bowl, so that when a dispense gets performed for a given client, which is all driven by this mobile application, the dispenser remembers what RFID tag that is, associates it with the client, so that when the stylist gets the color, applies it, if there's any left over, they simply walk back to the machine, they put the bowl into it, it weighs what's left over, it determines how much excess color was dispensed in that first application, and then the system learns. And so it says, okay, I dispensed 50 grams, there's 10 left over. In the history of this service for the client, I'm going to show that there was 10 extra grams, so that when they select that history record to repeat that service in the next 4 to 5 weeks for that client, it dispenses only the 40 grams, and that's how we eliminate the waste automatically, and they don't have to do a lot, to learn how to do it. So it's really a cool capability. And again, I want to hammer home this point. They're losing 30% of their pre-tax profit on the waste of that color. So we can walk in and have just an enormous economic value proposition for them, and that's winning us a lot of business. Let's see, the canisters, they cost 38% of the tubes, so that's great benefit for us, and they're recyclable, they're aluminum, and so we're going to have a really positive impact on the ecology over time. And then one last key thing here, there's this sensor that I was talking about. When I was a kid working for USC Information Sciences Institute, helping build the internet for the military, I got a chance to see some of the early plans for the cruise missiles. And I thought, wow, that's neat. How do you, hit something from 2,000 miles away, and get within 5 feet? Well, it's called a feedback loop. And so the feedback loop says, this is where I want to go. Looks up the satellite, says, here's where I am. Okay, wait a minute, I just got a little farther away. And so it can course correct. I realized that we could do that in the salon space by using a sensor and getting the before color, right? So you sense what it looks like. You apply the hair color, and then you record the results after. Now, why would we want to do that? It turns out that everybody's hair is a little bit different. It absorbs color a little bit differently, especially if it's been pre-colored. And so there's always a little bit of a difference from client A to B to C based on the same formulation. So what we realized we could do is we could record those subtle differences, put them into a big database, and then use AI algorithms to look at the hair profile that the stylist creates for the client to say, okay, what are its characteristics? And look for the combination of the formula that's being applied to those hair characteristics, go into the database, pull out like kind examples, and then see what adjustments were made to the formulas to hit a given target color. So highly scientific, no one's ever done it. It is the first time that anybody's ever even attempted to acquire this kind of information and put it into a big database. We think this is going to be really valuable on our exit. So moving on to the next piece. So we have those 2 fundamental patents that I mentioned. We have 4 more all around that big data AI using those sensors and the mobile application. We've also carefully trademarked our brand, our URLs. We just received a registered mark actually for CLICS, which is really nice. And our competitors are traditional hair companies. So they're the big guys. They're L'Oreal, Henkel, Kao, Goldwell, Paul Mitchell, all the brands that they have. And I'm happy to share in a few minutes, I'm going to talk about the fact that we're actually starting to partner with some of them because they see our platform, and they've told us, as a fundamental advance in the nature of their supply chain. And so we've actually inked a strategic deal with one of them for a contract that's in the high 6 figures to deploy our platform dispensing their color for 20 of their biggest clients as a phase 1 pilot. So here's our color. So you can see the whole line. There's a lightener here. This is a bleach, as some people will call it, to pull the melanin out and go blonde, as it were. The natural tones, the pure tones, and then the lotion or the developer, that's the catalyst. And then we have 3 additives. One is a color lock, which seals the color into the hair. Another is co-bonder, which makes it really nice and shiny and kind of repairs damaged hair, particularly for people that are doing a lot of bleaching and blonding. This is the money shot here. So these are all of the canisters. Again, we have 80% gross margins on our color. So it's really attractive space in terms of just throwing off a lot of cash. And then I'll share a couple of other really fundamental things. My co-founder, Leilani Macedo, is driving the product design, and she came up with just a couple of brilliant ideas. The first one is that she realized that because we have a computer-controlled dispenser, that we can mix anywhere from the strongest developer, which is a 40 level, to the weakest developer, which is 0 in increments of 1. So typically today, stylists only use those 3 or 4 pieces or flavors or strengths. We can give them any strength, and that really gives them a lot more flexibility in using that catalyst as a tool to lighten or to darken. There's a bunch of different things they could do with it. The second really big one is that she came up with this idea of a pH reducer. It turns out that salons typically carry not 1, but 3 lines. One is what they call permanent. That's got really high pH. It's really aggressive in opening up the cuticles, pulling out the melanin, and depositing the molecules. But that is a little bit aggressive for some customers. So they have a second line, typically all manufacturers, which is what they call demi-permanent. It's lower pH. It's a little gentler, on the head. And so in our case, rather than to force a salon to buy a completely separate line, we have an additive where they put a few drops of that in, it lowers the pH, and so it becomes a demi-permanent line as well as a permanent line. The third kind of line that salons buy is called a fashion line or a semi-permanent line. That's the pinks, the blues, the really bright fashion colors. Because we have separated ours out and have these pure pigments, we actually can deliver permanent hair color, meaning opening up follicles, pulling melanin, placing the dye molecules in fashion color, whereas all of the current fashion color, current fashion color on the market is what they call semi-permanent. There is no catalyst. It does not open up the follicles. It just coats the hair with that color. The problem with that is it doesn't last as long. It washes out in the shower. It gets on your pillow. It gets on your clothes. And so we have a single line concept. So one line with those 29 canisters, as opposed to 300 to 500 different tubes of colors, and then having to have those 4 to 10 deep, to maintain your inventory level. So it's a super competitive, supply chain reduction. And in fact, let me take a moment. I'm going to advance the slides just a minute, since I think this is a good time to apply this concept. And if you think about what we've done here, computer controlled dispensing, shrinking down the number of SKUs in a line, there's an analogy that you can make to the Home Depot paint centers of the world, right? So let me jump here and just show you this particular piece. Oops, get to where I wanted to be. Sorry, where's my slide? Ah, here we are. So if you think about paint before Home Depot, what you realize is that they would have a medium box store, Behr, Sherwin-Williams. You'd walk in, you'd look at the colors they have, you hope to have enough cans to do the size of the room you want, and if not, they'd have to order it and you go away. And they carry a whole bunch of inventory, not necessarily the right stuff, so it's too much and not enough all at the same time. When the Home Depot Paint Center concept emerged, what happened is the entire supply chain shrunk. So the raw materials became the base paint. The color choice increased dramatically. And you could walk up and get any of those colors you want, of course, and you give them the base paint and you give them the little example of the color. They'd look it up, they'd put in the dyes, and off you go with as much paint as you needed, because they could store a lot of the base paint. So really importantly, that was such a dramatic improvement in the supply chain and its efficiency that the entire market started to move that direction, and ultimately it became the entire market. We're doing exactly the same thing. So we're shrinking the number of components, SKUs. We're dramatically increasing the color choice, but in our case, we've completely automated it. So not only do you not need people to do the dispensing, the computer does it all. The computer tracks everything and then automatically reorders from the factory, and the inventory just shows up. So it is the beginning of what we think is going to be a transformation, and it's not just us who thinks it, a transformation of the entire supply chain for hair color. And then really importantly, remember that our patent is for both dyes and pigments, and we've been told by some of the major beauty companies that this technology, shrunken down and changed the form factor of the dispenser, can dispense color cosmetics, right? And that could go into either the home ultimately, or professional environments. It could include things like nail color. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to take that technology and really get adoption as a platform play, in addition to the value of our color. All right, so jumping back to the specifics of our technology, we spent thousands of hours designing a workflow mobile application, which not just lets you design color, but manage your clients, keep their hair profiles, take pictures you can use for social media, maintain a history of the service for the client down to the formula, how much time the formula was being applied to the hair, how much time it was allowed to process. And that turns out to be important, because the longer it stays on, the darker it gets. And so you can miss your color if you last too long. They have little alarms that help them do that. A laboratory to design color, and this is enormous, because again, today, all that color is designed in the factory, by the product managers. They have 3 or 4 dyes in them each, and if you try to mix them, it just turns to mud. So you can't really control the current, market's hair color and achieve target colors. And then, of course, all of the history, education, et cetera, built into the application. Moving on to the canisters, we did something else quite special, and this is what caused these major beauty companies to see this as a step change in their supply chain sustainability. We figured out how to put a unique barcode on every single canister. And what's really neat about that is that we order the labels, We put the unique barcodes, the printer prints the unique barcodes on each label, they get applied. We now know down to the barcode level what the inventory is in the factory. Okay, now when that gets, an order comes in from our machines, it gets picked, it gets shipped, we actually have them scan the barcode so we know exactly which cans are headed to which salon. When it shows up at the salons pay for it, that electronically goes into our system so we know it's been received. Then as each can goes into the machine, the system reads that barcode, confirms in fact that it showed up so that we're tracking what has gone into the machine and what might have gone missing so we can actually track loss in that respect. We track inside the machine the dispensing of each gram so we could tell how much is left, how much has been dispensed, when that canister is completely full and then can move it into, or empty and can move it into recycling. And we do all that in real time. So quite literally, I can sit here at my computer, pull up an application and say how many of this kind of can of color is in the supply chain and where is it in the supply chain. That helps us with reordering. I can see what the consumption rates are. And so you can imagine now that two things are happening. One, that a would-be competitor become partner says to us, we'd love to use your platform because we want to be able to track this, and we want to turn our 120 SKUs into 25 SKUs so that they can be mixed to make all the colors that they currently use, and we can save an enormous amount in the supply chain, right back to the Home Depot Paint Center. So this is a really big technological capability that the big beauty companies are coveting, and we have two partnerships, one signed and another one in the works already. To the neural network technology, it turns out that in the paint industry, you can compute the results of adding two dyes, and it's what they call linear. So I know if I add 50-50, it's going to be a color. If I add 25%, I can compute what that color is going to be. It turns out oxidative hair color is completely different. They're molecules that bind together in these dyes. It's kind of like musical chairs. If you have too much of one kind, some of the dyes won't bind and therefore they won't contribute to the color. And so it is computationally or heretofore impossible to compute it. We figured out how to use neural network technology to figure out how to create any color from our formula. Then we figured out how to use an optical sensor to scan someone else's color, all of our competitors, let's say, and then figure out which of our formulas would make up any one of their particular colors. Then we just put that into a menu so that a stylist who's used to a particular manufacturer and their particular color line can simply go into a competitor menu, pull up that color. You can't patent colors, can pull up that color and we can reproduce it with our formulation. That is enormous because in the salon world, and if you talk to any stylist, you'll know this, every color line is different. Even the naturals, from the browns to the blacks to the blondes, they're slightly different. They may be a little bit more cool, which is more on the greenish bluish side. They may be a little bit more warm, which is on the reddish side. People's hair reacts differently to that. We can supply a platform that says if you want to pick some L'Oreal colors, pick them. If you want to pick some Goldwell colors, pick them. If you want some Paul Mitchell colors, pick them. They're all there in menus, and so you get our colors, their colors, and any color you might want to design as well. So that is really fundamentally competitive. The kiosk model, and this is one of my favorite slides. My director of engineering invested several times. His first 100,000 was based on him having done this analysis. He helped build the Eco ATM kiosk where they recycle phones, and they sold for $350 million, and their economic value proposition on a kiosk basis was nowhere close to this. So how does it work? We supply the salons with 2 machines for workflow. That costs us about $6,000. So there's our cost, but we finance that. So we don't have to do a complete outlay of cash. Each machine we can finance for about $65 a month. Our hard costs are the initial inventory, because remember, we supply that at no cost and only charge them when they use it, our initial training, and then the installation. So we have about a $1,300 cost to bring up a customer. Their buying power is about $43,000 a year, 44 on average. When you reduce that by the cost of goods sold for the materials, it's about a $35K per year contribution. A little bit of maintenance cost for us to go in and service the machine a couple times a year. And the customers are long-term, so we look at a 5-year customer ownership model, and that's going to contribute $34K per year then. It's a payback of 3.3 months for the machinery, and the long-term contribution over 5 years is $165,000, and that's 2,268%, return over the lifetime. So a really, really attractive profile. And I've done a lot of businesses. Again, I looked for this and was fortunate enough to find it in this particular industry. The industry looks a little bit like this. So $1.5 billion in the US for hair color, $10 billion globally. And then if you add these additional categories, shampoos, conditioners, etc., it jumps to 4.6 in the US and then 18.4 globally. We are focused on the professional salons. We already have shampoo and conditioner formulations that are coming off of the production line in the next month, and we're moving down this, so we'll basically just continue to advance the products in the category. Ecologically, as I mentioned, we eliminate the tubes in the outer packaging by 100%. Or eliminate the traditional carbon transportation footprint, because product typically goes from factory to distribution, or to manufacturer to distributors. They break it down, and then they even send some of it into professional retail, where salons and stylists, they'll actually drive to go get color on a daily or weekly basis. So there's a lot of waste there we're eliminating. We're eliminating all the handling and packaging and all of those steps. And then we're eliminating the waste, and we estimate over the next 5 years, we'll remove about 5 million pounds of hair color from the water systems, in addition to about 100 million tubes from the landfill. So great ecological play. And I should make the point that all of those reductions in materials and handling increase our profitability, right? So we can compete on price with the others, we can add all the functional value, and accrue all that additional profitability to our bottom line. We've had some of the industry's biggest players tell us that we're going to revolutionize the space. Gail, has become an advisor to us, and she's run one of the top salons in the country 12 years running. She is an advisor to the Professional Beauty Association Board of Directors, which is the largest association in the world. And Ryan Goldman has also become an advisor. He was part of we went into an incubator, and he was part of the due diligence team. He's an industry player, 3rd generation family hair beauty business, and has just said we're going to revolutionize the space. We have a pipeline of over $8 million worth of customers that have signed up on our website and through event marketing we did. And so we've got a clear ability to go turn up demand and then begin to service. Very strong team. My co-founder is a brilliant ideator and an incredibly diligent hard worker. She recruited our first 3 engineers, which are really bright. Her brother is a 16-year mechanical engineer, does all the hardware design for our machines. He built was with IGT and built all the gaming machines, for Vegas, Reno, etc. We have a world-renowned hair color chemist who's created 5 of the top lines in the world that have been acquired by Estee Lauder, been acquired by L'Oreal, and others. So we really scored a brilliant player here. And then Jeff Pleutner, our director of engineering, again, I mentioned, was one of the early founders of EcoATM, has already had a really big exit. Stu D'Alessandro built the system. He's our software lead. He built the system, which is used by CBS to call the presidential elections. So very capable software guy. My background, as you heard, I got involved in technology, went in the Air Force, learned how to develop, maintain their computers, then got hired by USC Information Sciences to help build the internet for the military. Then the guy who's generally credited for building the internet, who became a mentor of mine, asked me to come go with him and help build the first commercial email service. So we built MCI Mail. And then I went off, formed another company, built a data communications line, turned that, included a security platform in it, merged it with a small company that had some encryption capability, and co-invented the first virtual private network technology. The company is called SafeNet. It's a $1 billion enterprise today. We had a $630 million exit in that one. And my return for my investors was 43x. So I had a really nice return on that particular business. I think we can do extremely well with this one, and I'll give you some numbers on that in a minute. Again, this is actually, I've done 6 in it before. This is my 7th business, and you know how it is. You make enough mistakes, get a few scars, and you figure out how to do it right. We have organized all of our key suppliers. So Norman Research, as I mentioned, for our color formulations. We have a color factory that is our partner to do all of the production. They've actually made a strategic investment in us, as has our factory, our color scientist. And then AQS is our machine manufacturing and assembly plant. All of our communications are via core telematics, which basically buys time on the networks, including AT&T, Verizon, et cetera. And then we just time share all that. And then PaySimple is our auto debit service provider. Revenue. So we just started into market at the end of last year. We converted our first beta customer. They started buying product from us. The entire market shut down at the March 15th. And stayed shut down until the beginning of June. We opened back up, and in 1 month, we were able to grow 500% from the prior quarter, which was really, we were really pleased that we were able to stay focused and get that done. It was quite a dynamic environment, to see a market shut down like that. So we were proud of being able to fight through it. And then we've continued to grow. In that same period of time, we closed our first strategic agreement, as I mentioned. We've now been receiving, dollars from that. This is booked business, and so I'm projecting what this quarter and the next quarter will look like. And so you see our percentage growth there. So we really have just hit the knee of the curve. These revenues are from strategic dollars that are coming in as part of working with one of the world's largest beauty companies. Their goal is to get through this phase 1 platform with 20 salons, go into phase 2 with 30 more, have 50, and then start to blow that out. Again, they're in 140 countries around the world. They've told us that they're interested in making a strategic investment, assuming phase 1 works. We already know we've accomplished the goals of phase 1. We just got to go through the process. We'll do our first installation in the November timeframe, finish that up in February, and then move into phase 2. And next, you'll see the reference to the supply chain. So if you can imagine, right, this strategic partner we have now, reducing their SKUs down from over 120 to 25, and how much that's going to save them in the supply chain. You can see why we have the potential to become the industry's platform service provider. And importantly, they've told us they're willing to allow us to service others, so it's not an exclusive relationship. I won't tell you who that competitor is, because we're getting ready to do a WeFunder crowdfunding campaign, and we're going to become more visible. I'll tell you a little bit about that in a minute, but again, we have to be a little bit more careful about what we reveal. In about another month and a half, this will become public, and I'll be able to share more about it. But what we've been able to do with this major global company is to have their brand powered by CLICS, and we think we're going to be able to maintain that position with the rest of them. So we've got great potential in the platform play part of what we're doing. It turns out that in the COVID dynamic, what we've seen is a huge trend when salons shut down, and we're seeing about a 15 to 20% market consolidation, which is big. That's good for us because the salons that are left are going to buy more color, and so great, we get more productive customers. But the ones that are leaving the salons that have shut down are moving into salon suites environment. So what they do is they'll go in, it's a real estate play for the salon suites folks. They bring up a big building, put in 30 to 40 individual suites of 10 by 10, 12 by 12 with a sink and a chair. The stylists rent them individually, hang out their shingle, and they've got an acute inventory management problem because they have too much and not enough all at the same time. So we're building a smaller version of our box to service that market. No one else can do it. We think we're just going to crush it in that space, and it's a really, really sizable and growing market. Here's our recent value creation events and our pro formas. And so we just, again, signed and are delivering on that strategic partnership. We've reached mathematical certainty on the neural network capability. We have a version 2 of our color coming out, which is just a phenomenal improvement. We had an aha moment in the way you design our formulation. And so we've got just a really high quality version 2 product emerging. We're in negotiations now with a 500 salon chain. If we get that, the value creation is just going to go, through the roof very, very quickly. And we're actually now talking with several more that are sizable. Their pain is really acute, right? The more salons you have, the more shrinkage you have, the more loss, the more difficult it is. And so we can solve a lot of problems for these folks. And I'm happy to share that we just got approved for a WeFunder crowdfunding campaign. And they have a partnership with an organization called The Next Unicorn, which is a media company that is going to promote and look at companies that have the potential for becoming billion-dollar enterprises. WeFunder recommended us as one of the handful that are really have big ideas and that potential. We've been selected by The Next Unicorn to be one of the first companies that they represent. I understand they have a partnership with Bloomberg, so we'll be getting a lot of exposure. So, so we need about 3.3 million in cash. We think we're going to raise at least 2 from the WeFunder program. So I'll talk a little bit more about that in our capital strategy. So our approach is we're going to offer $2 million at a $4.58 per share price. That's a 20 million pre-money valuation and a 39% discount to a third-party valuation that we just received from Stonebridge. And after the 2 million, which is a 20% discount from 573, we'll sell additional shares at this price. That's a $33 million valuation. We're going to open up the WeFunder campaign. And so let me talk a little bit about that. It's a crowdfunding model. So during the Obama administration, WeFunder actually went to legislators, got them to push a bill through Congress, which was approved, that basically said, now, in addition to accredited investors, unaccredited investors can invest. They have to invest via a platform that's built by folks like WeFunder, and there are laws you have to follow. One of our sister companies out of that Evo Nexus incubator that I mentioned has just raised $2 million. We think we'll do the same or better. And in talking with the Family Office Network folks, what we realized is this is a great opportunity for you to start to see us to make an investment, a bite-sized investment of $250,000, if that's considered bite-sized to you, to watch the show, so that next summer when we do a much larger raise, you've been able to see it, and we can talk about making a more substantive investment. So we like the concept. I've talked with the Family Office Network senior executives. They like the idea of us being sort of a test model, if you will, of providing this exposure, providing easy access to do a bite-sized investment, giving you inside access to the quarterly reports, and then determining whether or not you want to invest more. I was the first investor at a 1 million valuation. I put in the first $100,000. We've taken additional dollars at various price points since, and so we really feel like we're on a great trajectory. And in fact, we're just coming into our stride, and so we're going to see this time horizon and the value start to escalate. In terms of why I invested and came in to run the company, what I saw and I really liked, because I kind of evolved to internet meets fragmented industry X, I saw a very large and very fragmented, inefficient market, that we could create a very disruptive solution that would allow us to capture customers quickly and grow rapidly, that we are creating a new category. In fact, I've verified that with industry analysts. There's very clear customer pain in all of that loss and cash that's tied up. We have a first mover advantage, which is substantive. As I mentioned, we think approximately 3 years. The business is scalable and really importantly has low capital requirements. We're going to take another 3.3 and that's going to let us get cash flow positive. So obviously not a lot of capital left now that we've done all the hard work on the technology innovation. We will grow rapidly. And we have a very clear exit approach. We're going to get bought by one of the big beauty companies, and in 1 or 2 years, and we could get bought as early as the middle of next year, we can deliver a 4 to 6x, and in 4 to 5, I can do 12 to 16 for you, possibly better. And that includes a 20% dilution on a raise that we're planning this next summer of 15 to 20 million on a 75 to 100 million pre. And we already have an investment bank lined up to do that for us. They've been tracking us since early on, and so we're very confident in our ability to grow and exit. One of the other things I'll say is that the beauty industry has just started absorbing technology. So, right, it's called beauty tech, and they're nascent. They don't know how to do it internally, but L'Oreal, who is the big dog in the tent, has said we are going to be the leaders in this space. They're highly acquisitive, and so they're going to set the pace. If they were to buy us, wonderful, we have a nice big exit. If somebody comes out with a capability at some point, then we're going to be the only girls to take to the dance, once that, starting gun, really goes off in this space. So I think we're very well positioned. The investment banker that we started dancing with a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, who's prepared to take us out for that raise, pointed to comps, and they said your closest comp is a company called Sayuki. This company is interesting. They have a sensor that you can put on your face. It will detect your skin color, and then their machine actually makes foundation makeup that you can put on so you don't have those demarcation lines. They started in 2012. They sold to L'Oreal in 2014, just 2 years later, after coming out with their beta product for $150 million. And so if we were to do that, our price point is somewhere in the $25 per share range. So it gives you a view of how quickly that we can create value for our shareholders. Our master chemist created the line where I think it's L'Oreal buys Neely. So he created the line for Neely. He created the line for Goldwell and for the Schwarzkopf. As well as I think there's another one in here, which is I think that was the Aveda line. So very successful exits that he's developed. Again, the offer in summary, $2 million in Series B preferred, $4.58 a share. It's a $20 million pre. You get preference and participation, so you'll get your money back plus full participation with common. We've got some great investors in, a bunch of angel networks that have invested over time. Here's a quick view of the strategy. Check my time here. And you see a couple of folks that we're playing with. We have all of these check boxes. They want them. We'll be acquired by one of these or a handful of others that are in the market. And with that, I will pause for questions and say thank you for listening so graciously.
Thank you so much, Charles, and thank you for elaborating so much on CLICS. Yes, we will jump right into Q&A because we do only have a few minutes left. Again, to all of our attendees, please use your questions chat option on your screen to send over any questions that you have. So Charles, I'm just going to jump right into some questions. Some of these were sent over more towards the beginning, so you may have answered them already, but if we could just elaborate a little bit more, that would be great. So first questions, where is this available and do you have patents?
It is available throughout the United States, and so we can service anybody in this market. We've decided not to go overseas just yet, although our first major strategic partner is going to pull us there, I'm sure, next year. We have 2 patents that are issued. Again, one for the external pressure applied to a pressurized canister, which dispenses directly into a receptacle, and then the Smart Bowl, which weighs the leftover color, learns, and reduces waste. We have 4 more that are pending, including the neural network, data acquisition, AI mining of that information, and reformulation.
Wonderful, great, thank you. And just, is there any high-level cities that you can give us where this is available? Alice is asking.
My first partner was, my business partner is out of Reno, so we have several up there. We have 2 here in Southern California, and we have demand all across the United States. We've actually had 60 salons sign up on our website and make reservations that have about $2 million worth of demand. And then we have another collection of salons that are up in the Northeast, that big one with 500, so they're all over in the Midwest. So we're going to be expanding, pretty dramatically over the next year.
Wonderful, thank you. Next question, who is your A/B testing universe and what have those results been like?
A/B testing universe, not quite sure what that means.
Okay, no problem. Again, this is just kind of how it's chatted over to me. So
Okay.
Alice, if you could elaborate more on that question, that would be great. Charles, can you tell us how much does it cost to install in a salon?
Yes, so for us, it's about a $1,300 expense to bring them up. another $6,000 worth of CapEx, where we'll borrow and lease the machines and retain ownership of them. And again, the payback is 3.3 months for the hardware, and producing about 34K worth of gross margin contribution per salon per year. There are about 100,000 salons in the United States, minus the shrinkage that I shared.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Next question: does the hair color go bad, or is it shelf stable?
It is shelf stable. It has to have a shelf life for about 2 years, and it's a great question, by the way, because getting to the hair color, developing a hair color line is one of the hardest things there is to do. It's the holy grail in the space, and to get that hair color to become stable requires chemical brilliance. It's almost alchemy, frankly, and there are only a few people in the world who know how to do it. So once you get a line, it's a very special thing.
Great, thank you so much. Can you elaborate for us on who potential competitors would be in this space?
Absolutely, it's all the big guys. It's L'Oreal, Estee Lauder, it's Cal Goldwell, it's Paul Mitchell. They each own a piece of the market. No one owns more than about 12%, so it is fragmented amongst the big players. We are actually in discussions with 3 of them to provide the platform service. Fortunately for us, some of them are saying to us that we can sell our products as well as theirs, and pick up some of their distribution business and pick up that margin on distribution. So we're playing with them. So they're frenemies, if you will, until one of them acquires us.
Wonderful, thanks so much. Now, I feel like this is a great question due to the pandemic that we have kind of recently been in here. How would you say you clean the dispensing machine?
So there is as I mentioned, that fundamental patent allows the color to dispense directly from the canister into the bowl, and so there is no cleaning required. That's really fundamental. So you can see a canister here. If you're looking at my image, I just hold it up. It's got a little fitment, pressure on top, color comes right out, right into the bowl. So we don't have to worry about that. Cleaning is nominal. There's a little brush underneath that wipes the little tip of the fitment here, and you can take one of those out about every 2 weeks. Give them multiple ones, put one in the little dishwasher they have, put another one in, and that's it.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. Okay, seems like we have maybe time for one more question, and that is if you can kind of give us a lot more detail on the exit strategy.
Sure. And so what we're going to do with Intrepid Investment Bank, which you can look up and see, they've got a really strong beauty practice. They've done large numbers of transactions, so they're a sell-side player. They both could raise strategic money for us. They could bring in private equity. They could organize to sell us. And so what we're going to do this coming summer, so we'll build our network. We'll service this first big strategic partner, bring in a couple more. We'll go out for a strategic raise again of $15 to $20 million. We may pull in family office network people as part of that, maybe even do a secondary refunder campaign in addition to or as opposed to the investment bank. But what we think we'll do, and we may actually even get 2 bites at the apple, we'll look at the platform service activity as a division and the hair color as a division. We'll capitalize. We may get an offer we can't refuse, but the goal is just to build up both components of the business and then sell within 3 to 5.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Charles.
My goal, by the way, is $500 million valuation or $100 a share.
Charles, thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of our attendees, thank you so much as well. And we hope you guys have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thank you all so much. Bye now.
Bye, Charles.